Am I recording? I am. So, einen schönen guten Abend, good evening, and welcome everybody to our Transatlantic Tuesday series. My name is Friederike Schulte, and I'm the director of the Carl-Schurz-Haus in Freiburg, Germany. That is a German-American institute that's been fostering German-American transatlantic dialogue for almost 70 years. We're happy you're all here. Please make sure you have your microphones turned off to ensure the best sound quality possible. And if you'd like to keep your cameras on, that's up to you. We're happy to see some faces from Freiburg and Madison. Yeah, we've been hosting this Transatlantic Tuesday series since the beginning of the year, and it has really helped us at the Carl-Schurz-Haus to navigate sanely through the pandemic and keep transatlantic communication alive. And of course, seeing each other on screen is not the same, but this is as good as it's been getting. And we're thankful for all the encounters we were able to bring to your screens about, if you've joined us in the past, US and German economy with Joseph Stiglitz and Lars Feld, or about right-wing tendencies in our democracies with Anne Applebaum, or the US as a global force with Stephen Wertheim, or wonderful authors like Julia Phillips and Harry Kunzru. And tonight, we are, so to speak, taking it home and over the Atlantic at the same time. I'm thrilled that as our last Transatlantic Tuesday before our summer break, I have the honor of welcoming the mayor of our sister city, Madison in Wisconsin, Mayor Satya Rhodes-Conway. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And what would this talk be without her counterparts? Ein herzliches Willkommen to our Freiburg Oberbürgermeister Martin Horn. Thank you for making this work at short notice, lieber Herr Oberbürgermeister.
You're very welcome. Hello to everyone from Madison and Freiburg.
Governing a city is a busy job, and I really appreciate you both taking the time. We will have around 60 minutes of conversation. You can ask your questions in the chat as well. And we are also recording this, and if everything goes according to plan, you can watch it on our YouTube channel later on or recommend it to friends and family. We have an interesting audience, as I already said, a lovely mix from Freiburg and Madison, and also from the Freiburg-Madison Gesellschaft and the Madison-Freiburg Sister City Committee. I would like to welcome both committees. I'm also on the board of the Freiburg-Madison Society. Some are having their lunch break over in Madison, and some are about to have dinner or later on watch football here in Germany. As you might know, the Sister City Connection was built over 30 years ago. A delegation has been meaning to go over to celebrate the anniversary and vice versa. But alas, it wasn't possible so far, and you, the fairly new heads of our cities, have not yet had the chance to meet, so we're making a little start here. There was a sister city delegation from Freiburg going to Madison and the other way around in 2013, but that was when two former mayors were still involved. There was Paul Soglin in Madison and Dieter Salomon in Freiburg. That's quite a while ago. And by now in both cities, we would say, in city halls, there's fresh blood, oder es weht ein frischer Wind, and a new energy all around. I remember my last visit to Madison 2018. That was during the mayoral race, when there were still quite a few candidates running. And you, Mayor Rhodes-Conway, were then elected in 2019, and Martin Horn in Freiburg in 2018. So I'd like to briefly introduce the both mayors to each other and to you. Mayor Satya Rhodes-Conway is a Democrat. She's the 58th mayor of Madison, and her administration is focused on affordable housing, rapid transit, climate change, and racial equity. She's working to build a $160 million bus rapid transit line across the isthmus to relieve traffic congestion, connect workers to jobs, and help meet the city's ambitious climate goals. She has extensive experience in local policy and practice and has served 3 terms on the Madison Common Council. And before being elected, before she was elected in 2019, she is the city's 2nd female mayor and the first LGBTQ person to serve as mayor of Madison. And Martin Horn, our Freiburg Oberbürgermeister, is the youngest or one of the youngest mayors of what we call a Großstadt, what Americans call, I think, a mid-sized city in Germany. He's without party affiliation. He's dedicated to digitization efforts on a local and more broader level, working on affordable housing, and also busy with a new sustainable mobility project. Martin Horn is also head of eClay. eClay is a global network of more than 2,500 local and regional governments committed to sustainable urban development. And the European headquarters of eClay is located in Freiburg. And I think Madison is part of the network as well, by the way. Our two cities have many other things in common. The universities are central to their character. They're very similar in size. They also share a pretty alternative history in an otherwise historically pretty conservative state. This has changed here and there partly. And Wisconsin also has a large population of German descendants with German roots, which we've explored in a project hosted by the State Department a couple of years ago in the Deutschlandjahr in the US under the name #Wunderbar together, by the way. So anyways, from German history to the pandemic and sustainability efforts, I think it's become obvious to us that it's not always the federal government, maybe in DC or in Berlin, or nor the individual states, but very often it is about the mid-sized cities that are leading the way in innovation, sustainable planning, and from which the better ideas to face the pandemic or other current or future challenges are sparking. So let's start a conversation that you and we can hopefully deepen and continue over the course of the next few years. And I have a bit of a plan of what we could talk about, but you already hit it off and compared notes in our little pre-meeting. There are many interesting differences in how politics work actually in the US and Germany as well. But something that we all faced, but faced differently, I think, was the pandemic situation in the past year and a half. And I wanted to ask you both, and maybe send this question over to Madison first. How did Madison fare during the pandemic, and what were the hardest issues? I know the violent death of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter was a big part. Defunding the police was a big issue as well. There was a lot going on in Germany, the same. How was Madison doing, and how are you doing now?
Well, let me start by saying thank you for the invitation to be here, and for the chance to meet my friends in Freiburg, and that I do hope that we'll be able to do this face-to-face in the not too distant future. It has been a very difficult year and a half of the pandemic. I think overall, Madison and the area around Madison, Dane County has done relatively well from a perspective of illness. Obviously, we lost people, too many people, but our numbers were fairly consistently lower than surrounding areas and the state of Wisconsin. And our numbers now in terms of vaccination are consistently higher. We have about between 68 and 69% of our population has at least one vaccine shot. And we are pushing hard to make sure that not only is the vaccine available to everyone, but that we are going out into the community to educate and to encourage people so that we can get that number even higher. But it's been very, very difficult. One way in which it's been difficult is that while we here in Madison and Dane County really followed the science, we had fairly restrictive public health orders shutting things down, requiring masks, closing schools. The areas around us and the rest of the state did not necessarily, and so that created a real disparity. And we were sued multiple times, both us and the governor of Wisconsin, when we were trying to institute public health restrictions, were sued, and many of those cases we lost. So it most recently, our public health department lost the ability to close schools for illness. And that's a really big, I think, dangerous precedent. And so the insertion of politics into the pandemic was really disturbing and harmful, I think. So that's one thing that was really hard. Another thing that was really hard, which I'm sure was true for you as well, is the impact that the pandemic had on the economic situation for our city, both for people's, individual households, people losing jobs or not being able to work, and then also for small businesses. And this is something that we are, just starting to come out of now that everything can be open again. But there's so much to make up and so much economic harm done. So we're working very closely with the federal government, which has provided funding. And we're actually tonight at our city council meeting, I'm hopeful that the council will approve the framework for our rescue plan funding. And then, as you said, when George Floyd was murdered, that really kicked off a lot of social unrest, and Madison was hit pretty hard by that, which we are also still recovering from. And it has reinvigorated a conversation around policing and race in our community and across the country, and in fact, across the world, I think. So those discussions have been hard, and that work is, ongoing. So lots of challenges in the past year. It's been a difficult time to be leading a city. I think probably true for all mayors across the world. But also lots of opportunities and lots of lessons learned.
Yeah. For Martin Horn, I think Freiburg was the first city that went to lockdown. That was a courageous thing to do, or an important step. I'm still interested how you felt when you made that decision.
First of all, also once again, hello to Madison, dear colleague. It's a pleasure that we going to meet tonight online. We sent us some letters, but to meet in person, I think we're really looking forward to meet in person, hopefully next year. COVID pandemic. So I think it's still a challenging situation, and I'm not sure that we are really aware of the real output, like the social output of that crisis so far. And I think there are many things still we have to try to fix, to repair, and then also to prevent for the future development. You named it. Freiburg was the first city with a real lockdown all over Germany. Just like to our friends in Madison, maybe we haven't been to Freiburg so far. So we've got 4 kilometers to the French border, and we've got only 40 km to the Swiss border. So Switzerland and France, they're really our close neighbors. So we call it ourselves like a triangle in that region. So that's very easy, and there's a daily thousands, tens of thousands people go across that river, which is the line between our countries. And that means we've got like a strong outbreak in France in March 2020, in February 2020, and we've been really hit in the beginning, hit hard in the beginning of the crisis, and then I had to decide as a mayor so that we are going to have the first lockdown all over the country, and I mean during that afternoon. Friederike, I think 4 ministers that called me on my mobile and tried to avoid that step and say, no, don't, and you're the first. And I mean, I do remember one day, that was first day evening, on Friday already, 50 cities did follow the direction of Friday, and the state of Baden-Württemberg did follow on Saturday. And after all, it was the right decision, and it was a necessary step. But meanwhile, I can say that today, but like, I think that was a very stressful situation, because obviously no one did know what's going to happen real. Like, how is it tomorrow? How is it the day after tomorrow, and so on. And that was still very pushy. You named it, like youngest mayor of Germany, very close to let's say, to young life, liberal, open-minded, and that I'm going to decide for a lockdown for the city. That's a very weird situation, also for me in person. So that means there was a challenging time, and I'm really glad that now it gets better and better and better, also with the vaccination. So that means anyhow there is some, and we are looking forward like to get this crisis done anyhow. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any really positive experiences during that year and a half in your job, or did you experience your job in a different way, or did you see like new forms of cooperation, or a new partisanship? I don't know.
I think yes, all of the above. You know, I was a relatively new mayor when the pandemic hit, and you know, we had to put aside all sorts of things that we were working on to focus on just figuring out the public health measures that we needed to take, and to get not only the public but our own staff through the experience. One of the things that that I learned that I really appreciate and am trying to sort of keep this energy going forward is how quickly our staff across different agencies and departments came together to work together, stepped out of their normal job duties, and took on things that just needed to be done. And that that the creativity that was sparked when you had people from different agencies in the same room virtually, right? Talking to each other and trying to solve problems together was something that I think we had not been used to. You know, people were very siloed, and it that has been productive, and something that we're trying to hang on to now is to keep that sense of cross-department or cross-agency teams to work on problems. So that's one thing that was really positive. Another thing that was really positive is just how much our community came together to take care of each other. And you know, just one example, we had people out there sewing masks, you know, basically nonstop, and giving them away to whoever needed them. We had people rally to help provide food for families in need, to check on their neighbors, to, you know, even something as simple as putting chalk art on the sidewalk, so when people were out taking a walk, they had something to cheer them up. So that was another really positive thing, is to affirm how much our folks care about each other. Mm-hmm. But there was, you know, as I said previously, there was definitely an uptick in partisanship, and that the pandemic in some ways became a partisan political issue, and the taking precautions or wearing a mask became for some people a political statement, which I think is really dangerous and unfortunate. And we're trying now to pull out of that, and to affirm for people that you know, wearing a mask is a health related choice, and that it should be respected. And if people want to continue wearing masks, that's a good choice for them. And so we're trying to reset our expectations around that.
Yeah. I think Freiburg has a bit of trouble with conspiracy theorists as well, or we do in Germany, with a bit of a split of society around the whole vaccination and mask issue as well, right? Right.
I mean, well, I'm not sure about the real number, but at least, I mean, that there's a huge media focus and a social media focus on them, and a couple of few people are saying really weird things and sharing weird theories. about Bill Gates and I mean, and we just like shake your head. So I mean, that's the very large minority of the population, let's say. But unfortunately, our state capital, Stuttgart, was really well known all over Germany for a couple of demonstrations exactly from those kind of people. And in Freiburg, I mean, I think we never had like a demonstration with more than, let's say, 100, 200, or maybe 300 people. Like, so that's a very small demonstration. But still, I mean, that's 300 person too much. But I think also, I mean, we always have to accept democracy and the rule of law and the free opinion. At least it's, I mean, it's covered by the free opinion, but there's a strong line. So I would maybe name a couple of same things. So as my colleague said, so I think there was also like it was a huge push for the solidarity between people, between generations, between rich and poor, between the neighborhoods. I think that was really helpful, and that's we have to continue with. We created this hashtag Freiburg Stick Together, Freiburg hält zusammen. So that's also like this kind of we stick together and we fight this pandemic together, and because we're going to lose or we're going to win together. But the other hand side also, like with the sewing masks, like our theater, I think they do thousands of masks during their lockdown. I mean, that was very impressive, and so there are many good examples. And I told you before about the first shock, the first pandemic outbreak in France and then in Freiburg. And I think we learned a lot out of that, because we brought all our hospitals together and we created networks that haven't been existed before. So that means that was really helpful also because it's now a long-lasting pandemic situation. And this is, I think, maybe one idea why we did so good in 2021. So we're like in the average, we are one of the lowest incidence rates in all over the southwest of Germany. And I think that's also because, I mean, we are a strong university city, but we had to make this really bad experience with the first outbreak, and now it got way better. But I think another point I want to highlight is that, I mean, what's the lessons learned of that pandemic? And for me, one lessons learned has to be that the cooperation between science and politics and society have to get stronger. So I mean, we don't fight like only a pandemic crisis, a COVID crisis, but also like a climate crisis. And there are many things are well known for many years already, but anyhow we don't want to listen, or we don't want to act, or I don't know. And this is kind of because, I mean, that's not only town halls, they're not only local politicians, that's not only national politicians, but still there has to be like a change also in the society, but also in politics. And this is that's one of my wishes, that we don't make everything the same it was before the crisis, so that there have to be some parts that we create new things, new ideas, innovation, and that we have to be brave also to fight the climate crisis with the same effort, kind of.
Yeah, Rahmen, I really agree. I think from the very beginning, and probably sooner than I should have, I was saying, you know, we can't let this go to waste. Everything is going to change. And so we have to think about how do we not just go back to, you know, the old normal, right? But how do we push through to something better? And how do we learn from this experience as a society? So I completely agree with you. I think that we don't want to get back to normal. We want to get back to better. And you know, I think that's difficult, but worth pushing on. I wonder, Mayor, what the situation around vaccination is like in Freiburg, and how you're working to get people are you seeing resistance? How are you working to convince people? What's the situation there?
We're doing quite well according to that question. So I think there is not that strong anti-vaccination movement than in other countries, or also in the US maybe. So we've got the real problem that never ever had enough vaccination materials. So that means, so we have a vaccination center which is responsible for 6 districts, for the city of Freiburg, which is the own district as well, like a district city, and then another 5 districts. It goes below to the Lake of Constance, the Swiss border, the French border. I think in total, let's say, I would have to calculate, let's say more than 1 million people vaccination from that center in the beginning. And so far till today, we never ever had a full day of with the whole potential we could create. So that means we are suffering because we had for many weeks, many months just too less vaccination, that was a real challenge. In this moment, we've got a vaccination rate in Freiburg with the first grade with more than 50, and with the second, I think, nearly 30%. Now it gets slowly less and less. So now it's kind of a tipping point that now we would have more material, more vaccination stuff to use. Then people are coming to the center, but there was also many political shifts. Now you can go to your own doctor, who's responsible for you. Now you can get a vaccination in your also at your company to some extent. So there's a change in a strategy, and now it gets slower and slower, and at the end maybe, but it's the guess, maybe we end between 60 and 70%, let's say. But still there's a long way to go. Which is interesting. There's also Pfizer in Freiburg. I'm not sure about so there's also Pfizer has a situation in Freiburg, but also a lot of med companies like Stryker or Intuitive Surgical. So that means we have a very, very strong hospital, which is the greatest employee all over the region. So that means that's the 3rd largest university hospital all over Germany, and that's why we did quite well with the vaccination process. How about the situation in Madison?
Can I include a question from the chat real quick that fits together from an American living in Germany, because the media is full of the question, will we ever reach herd immunity if people are not willing to get vaccinated? So that fear is growing. And there's a question for you both. I'm sorry for interrupting, but I think it really adds to the conversation. From what I've read, the willingness of an individual to be vaccinated often depends on his or her political affiliation. What tactics are you and other mayors in the US and Germany using to convince everyone to get vaccinated? Appeals to logic, carrots, incentives to be fully vaccinated, or sticks, negative consequences for people who refuse vaccination? Sorry.
Yeah, so it's a good question. So here in Madison, we reached that point for a good while, we didn't have enough supply for everybody who wanted. And then we reached the point where we had gotten everybody who was really eager already. And so we started to have to go out and encourage more. So that's really where we're at now, is the point of trying to really just make the vaccine as available in communities. I don't think we have gotten yet everybody who is willing. I think we have gotten everybody who is like, I am going to get vaccinated no matter what, right? And now we're on the people who, I want to get vaccinated, but it has to be easy. And there are certainly, I think, people who are less willing for whatever reason, or don't want to get vaccinated. And that's, for those folks, we are trying to educate. We're trying to do outreach to specific communities of people in Madison. We're trying to do that outreach in multiple languages to reach specific communities. There are places in the US that are doing more incentive-based things where you can get a free something if you get vaccinated, or there are some places that are doing lotteries for cash, or there are some places that are doing competitions for scholarships. We're not at that point in Madison yet, but we certainly have thought about it. And then, of course, there are places, mostly this is like employer by employer, whether or not they're requiring vaccination to return into the workplace or to return to school. I think that is less common here in the US, and probably will remain less common until the vaccines get their full formal approval from the federal government. Right now, we're still on the emergency use approval. So once they get the full approval, we may see more employers being willing to require them. But right now, we don't see a lot of that.
I think that's like a real difference between US and Germany. So first of all, I mean, Friederike ask us like what could we do, or what have we done? I mean, also I think Satya, you did. I just checked your Instagram profile. You did also post a pic of. So that means it's also to make it public. You know, that's a maybe very simple step. So I mean, seriously, I mean, there are also some Freiburg inhabitants in this call. I would love to ask them what do you think about a vaccination lottery? That wouldn't be possible at all in our country. So that would be really strange. I think that we would get like the completely opposite effect. So people would get crazy and maybe even angry because it's kind of like the privacy about vaccination that wouldn't be. I couldn't imagine that. But still, I mean, so far we've got like real like the different situations. So I remember one, I think it was a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning even. So and then we offered some vaccinations without appointment at our center, and we said we've got like I think 2,000 shots on a Saturday, and just come over and get your vaccination. And thousands of people did queue in, and it was a disaster, also immediate disaster for our city in the situation, because I mean we talk about distance between people, and all the people were queuing in, and like so that means in the very beginning of the crisis for many months we've got like way too less, and all the politicians said, yeah, there's a lot of vaccinations coming to Germany, and so but the opposite was like the reality. That was a weird situation, and I think now we've got enough, but still, and we've got some special offers to some kind of groups. For example, like we go into a refugee camp and offer the vaccination, also like in different languages. We have like I think the Johnson & Johnson is the one-shot vaccination, so that means so we offer that to homeless people. And so on. So that means we've got different offers, but so far I wouldn't say that it's a real problem, but we had a lot of speed problems. And now it's like the fact that some people are just bored because they tried to get like a date, an appointment for weeks, for months, and it wasn't possible. And some of them are just kind of nerved but I think the greatest push factor. May I use that term, push factor? Is that correct? It sounds a bit weird. It sounds a bit English, like German English. So let's say the greatest motivation point is probably summer holidays. So Germans, they love to travel, and it's still difficult. Many Germans, they just stay in their country, and but still they want to travel, and I think that's a huge motivation for many people to get a vaccination shot, because then it's way easier for you to leave the country or to travel within the country.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that was a motivator for people here too. And I have to say, I think we had very similar experiences, except that we're maybe a little bit farther along than you in the curve. One thing that I did hear that you said that I really felt too is that I learned over the course of the pandemic is the importance of clear communication. And just regularly providing good information, even if you don't have anything new to say, to just say all the good information again. And that was something that really, you know, we didn't do a great job of, I think, at the very beginning of the pandemic, because as you say, we were all trying to figure out which way was up and what was going on and how to deal with it. But that we tried to get better over time. And I think I will carry that even past the pandemic as well, that we just need to be really good from government at being very clear and regular in our communication.
We could probably talk about the pandemic for hours and hours, and I feel like it feels really good to share, but I really want to ask about your projects that are ongoing as well, that you as new mayors had to put aside. And I know in the audience, we have some experts in the sustainability field with transatlantic experience, some with Madison, Freiburg experience as well. And both cities do have a green reputation, and you've probably both inherited projects from the previous mayors that you have to work on, but what are maybe successful sustainability or climate initiatives or projects that you are busy with or that are emerging in your city that you would like to share with the sister city?
Well, yeah, so we did have to put, as I said, we had to put aside quite a few things going into the pandemic, but we have picked many of them up again. We are in the process of creating a bus rapid transit system for Madison to bring more sustainability to our transportation sector. And we are working on a number of things related specifically to climate. We have a net zero goal by 2030. And so we are, for our own electric use, we're about 75% of the way there. And a lot of that is through installing solar on city-owned buildings. And one of my favorite projects that we're doing around sustainability is our green power team. And so this is a group of young people who come in and are apprenticed to one of our master electricians, and they learn how to install solar panels by doing it on our roofs. And they also now are expanding to doing replacements of our lights with efficient LED lights. So we preference people who are underrepresented in the trades, so women and people of color, and they learn these skills, and at the end of the year they have a choice. They can go out and work for a company, or they can stay on, and we're developing career pathways within our own public works department so that they could continue on to sort of electrical path. They could learn plumbing, they could go into our engineering department or our streets department. So we're training the future of our public works while we're pushing our sustainable goals forward. And I just love this program. I've doubled it since I came into the mayor's office, and we're thinking about how to expand it even farther into things like forestry and fleet and parks, and just any way that we can be promoting sustainability while at the same time providing folks with good jobs and the training to get those good jobs. So that's one thing that I'm very, very excited about continuing to do.
Well, that's very interesting to hear, actually, and I think that would be also one of the areas for very close cooperation between our cities, because as I said, there's a lot to do, like to fight the climate crisis. Our city is, let's say, well known as a green city with it's a long-standing history already, and there are many projects. I mean, I would really glad to show you such the project of our new town hall. So we built a new town hall and we did open it to 18. And then that was the first plus energy town hall all over the world. There's enough space for 900 employees. That should be the first out of 3 buildings. So in total, we've got 4,000 employees. And there was also like a prize a couple of times, but that's very innovative, but also very nice. And it's a great working atmosphere, and it's a huge benefit for the inhabitants as well. So that's like a win-win-win situation. Freiburg is a growing city. As Madison, we've got a lot of students. At the moment, we've got 230,000 inhabitants, but it's so expensive. It's super expensive, and so affordable housing is just not possible in our city at the moment. Our city council they decided we're going to build a new suburb, a suburb with let's say 16,000 new inhabitants or maybe more. Just to get you a first idea, because we're such a young city, according to the average age of our inhabitants, we build, and we open 22 new kindergartens over there. Just like to give you an idea, 22 new kindergarten buildings. So that's like a massive. So we talk about like a budget between 4 and 5 billion euros. So that's it's a real number. And we would like to be the first CO2 neutral suburb all over Europe. So that's very ambitious. And so, I mean, this call is recorded, so I'm not allowed to say, so maybe we fail, but at least it has to our goal. It has to be our goal that we are the first CO2 neutral town all over Europe, because it's just necessary that we get some innovation. But there are many smaller, very concrete, very interesting projects between tram lines and also solar roofs, schooling projects, recycling, and so on, waste reduction, new windmills, water, geothermal heat energy, and so there are many things. I think that's our highest priority. My last sentence. So last year we had the largest demonstration in our own city history in Freiburg, which was a demonstration from youth from Fridays for Future. And that was massive. So that means like the young generation, they are back into politics and they really want to change. And that's a huge factor like for city politics. And that means, I mean, even we call ourselves a green city, there's a lot of criticism from everywhere that we are too slow and that we do too less. And I mean, everyone is coming to Freiburg to see some examples. But in Freiburg, everyone is saying, "Hey, green city, where's the green city? It's a gray city and we need more. And I mean, that's the right approach, because we have to do more.
Yeah, we have a very similar dynamic. I think that young people in the US are very passionate about climate and climate work. And I mean, again, as you say, rightfully so, nothing is good enough. We have to keep pushing. And so I mean, anyway, I want to come visit and see all these things, but yes, we're pushing on our buildings. We also are converting our fleet. One thing that I'm very excited about is that we just got the first electric fire truck in all of North America. It's a test model. So the company is here in Wisconsin, and they have lent it to us. It's at one of our fire stations. It's on, it's been on maybe over 200 calls already, and they're gathering data on it to roll it out, for sale to other communities. So I'm very excited that we're able to help develop this technology and to push on electrification of transportation more broadly. So I think we could also talk about this forever, probably.
This is so fun, yeah.
Friedrich, allow me like a few short sentences. First of all, that sounds very interesting. I think you'll get tomorrow call 201 from our firefighter department. We have a press conference on Thursday with two of the first hydrogen waste disposal trucks. And that's like the first 2 out of 10. So that's also very exciting. Then very nice is please say hello to your Vice Mayor Christy Baumel. Your Vice Mayor Christy. So we've got a Green City dialogue. I think that the Freiburg inhabitants don't know. So we've got like we invite our sister cities for a Green City dialogue. And your Vice Mayor is like, I think he's one of the early birds, because at your time it's at 5:30 and he's already waiting with a video conference with a fresh coffee. So I think that he's really, she's really motivated. So that's a high level of motivation. And the last one, that's an invitation. We talked about football, about soccer before, about soccer and the match tonight. So we have very famous, wonderful, ambitious soccer club in Freiburg, and we built a new stadium. And we also planned the largest solar roof all over the world on a soccer stadium. And it's going to be opened like this summer. So if you come over, so we have to watch a match at first.
Absolutely.
And afterwards, we're going to talk about the roof.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I look forward to that too.
The players are fueled by the solar energy created up there, so they're especially good. I don't know, you already jumped into answering my my next question. I think it's been established that we do want to visit the other city, and just to continue the fun vibe here, what are the 3 things that you definitely would show a delegation of your city if we as Freiburgers came to Madison and the other way around?
Wow. Well, so the mayor's already taking me to a football match. So I think we would have to reciprocate here and take you all to see our Forward Madison football team. Their mascot is the flamingo. You know, of course, we'd want to make sure to engage with the universities. I think here, the University of Wisconsin is such a beautiful campus and so much going on it that I wouldn't want to miss introducing you to that. And then, you know, I think we would want to tour some facilities and show off the various things that we're working on with sustainability. So our new Penny Library, for example, has geothermal. Our new fleet facility has 4 different kinds of solar, maybe more than that, 5 different kinds of solar that it's using. So we'd want to show you some of the technology and sustainability work that we're doing here in Madison. And then I'm cheating because this is more than 3, but of course we'd have to have some comparisons of German and American food. Perhaps starting with cheese and ending with beer.
With the imagination store and drinking spotted cow.
Well, we start with that, yes, but there's much more to go.
Squeaky cheese curds, someone is encouraging us in the chat.
Yes, that's a Wisconsin experience not to be missed.
Wonderful.
So that means I'm looking for even more right now because that sounds very promising. So I mean, number 1, I did name already the visit to the soccer match and the soccer stadium to combine sports and sustainability in a way. Then probably I would invite you and the delegation to our mountain. So we've got a own mountain, like in the city area of Freiburg. There's a cable car going up, and which is very interesting because we've got like an altitude difference with 1,000 meters, which is like the largest altitude difference all over Germany. And from there you have like a great view but also you can see a lot of like sustainability projects. So that would be like a nice panorama. And now the project number 3 has to be something special, and probably also with food and beer. But obviously, I would have to take you to the city center, because we've got a beautiful city center with a cathedral, with great restaurants, and with great wine. And number 4, so if you cheat, I'll have to cheat as well. I would ask the committees, the sister city committees, like for number 4, because I mean the committee in Madison knows Madison quite well. Our committee knows Freiburg quite well. So maybe that would be a very nice option, because I think they won an award 2019 for the most active sister city committee between US and Germany, which is quite a number. And so this means we have to deepen and to strengthen that cooperation. To make a political point, ka-ching!
Sounds wonderful.
To the Carl-Schurz-Haus. I'm deeply disappointed, but we'll come and invite you anyways. There are a couple of more wonderful questions in the chat, and the chat has kind of been taking care of itself. That's nice. In the community, people are answering cross-Atlantic questions that they have about the homeless or health system in Germany and the US. So thank you guys for being interactive. I think I want to share one more question, because that's something I've been busy with. Germany, or Freiburg, has the academic year in Freiburg program that's been I don't know, active for over 50 years, and bringing in students, exchange students from Midwestern universities and from Madison as well. That's a wonderful thing, but we would like to encourage more exchange between young people, between the two cities, and for them to get involved in the sister city relationship as well. And the question here is, speaking of the younger generation, what are your cities doing to include young people and motivate them to get involved in local levels of politics?
It's a great question. And prior to the pandemic, this was something that we were actually working on. We have a strong tradition here in Madison of inviting interns into city government, and from the high school, both the high school level and the college level. And so one of the projects that some of our interns were working on pre-pandemic was actually putting together a conference for young people in the community to help them engage with city government. And we were hopeful that we would, that out of that would come a more sustained engagement for young people. Some cities in the US have like a youth council that parallels their city council. We don't have that in Madison, and we were talking about it, but then, you know, here comes the pandemic and interrupts everything. So that's something that I'm hopeful we can get back to. The other thing, though, is that one of our city council districts, so they're geographically based, encompasses most of campus, and is traditionally, that seat is held by a student. As it is now. And so we have consistently drawn our district boundaries so that we will have student representation on our city council, which I think is important. So that's just a few things that we're working on, but it is so important for us to make sure that young people feel like they have a voice in government and that they have ways to engage. So we're always looking for more ideas.
That's a very nice idea, because we haven't got this really strong connection to student issues to our city council than you obviously have. So we've got like a very strong cooperation between like the university, the president of the university, the Lord Mayor, and also the head of our university clinic, which is the largest employee, as I said. So we've got like a triangle connections, and we have like, I think twice a year, like a meeting, and like dozens of smaller meetings, obviously. But still there's a very close student cooperation in different areas. As I said, we are a very young city. The average age of our inhabitants is like the second youngest average age all over Germany. Many families, many children, but also many students. And we've got like also a young city council. So we've got 48 members, and I think the youngest one is already 21. So that means it's like a very wide variety of different generations and political groups are covered in our city council. And but we do a lot also like to listen up to the young generation. So for example, I do invite the responsible groups from Fridays for Futures at least twice a year in the town hall. Like last year, I did invite them to speak up to all our department heads, which is quite unusual. I do have like social media sessions as well to invite like younger people to answer questions. So communications is very important to me, and now in my understanding of our job as mayors on local and regional level. So there are many aspects. For example, with this new suburb, Dietenbach. So we've got like a committee, and how do I say, Zufallsbürger Friederike Schulte. So we Zufallsbürger, like randomly elected inhabitants, let's say. It's like we created out of 400 randomly elected Freiburgers with it's like a proportion all over the city, age, sex, and so on, suburbs. And we invite them to advise us during that 2 decades building process of that suburbs. And we have that same with like an advisory youth boards. So that's quite important to me. Hope you get what I tried to say.
No, that's fascinating, and some good ideas in there.
Our time is almost up. I think there's a lot to follow up on, and I think I'd like to continue Madison-Freiburg conversations on a regular basis, and we'll try and bring experts together from both cities and discuss topics here and on an online public forum, and maybe the head of your public library, because I think your public library is pretty awesome, and maybe ours, and we can choose together, maybe choose a number of people that can compare notes about what's going on to keep the dialogue alive, and maybe also like create a stable foundation for the sister city connection that just nurtures itself. You have tough jobs, the two of you, and I'm wondering how you're navigating private and public life as well. You have Instagram presences, and I think they're pretty great. Satya Rhodes-Conway says, Mayor at City of Madison, knitter, queer, enviro, don't tell my dog I'm a cat person. And she's also linking to another page that is, I think, the official page that I then found. And I saw many beautiful cat and pictures of blossoms and flowers and nature. And Martin Horn is really active on Instagram as well. And his profile says, politician, father of 3, husband, as well as mayor of the beautiful city of Freiburg. And he's posting a sock every day. He's showing us every day what kind of socks he's wearing. Almost, right?
Let's say, not per day, maybe twice, 3 or 4 times a month. Like max is once a week. But there's a long story behind that. Yeah, right? Okay.
I'm just wondering how you're keeping a social media presence can be a little private, and you are out there in the public as a whole person, and you are showing people part of your private life. How's that working out for you, and how's social media as a mayor working out for you both?
It has been it's a hard thing to balance for me. Over the past year and a half, I have felt like social media has been pretty brutal and people have been pretty mean. Mm-hmm. I think you know, particularly to mayors, but also I think to women in leadership in general. Social media has not been a very friendly place. I have dealt with it by really pulling back on my personal use of social media. This is why you see flowers and cat pictures, and focusing my use of social media as a communications tool on either the official city side or the campaign side. So I have separate accounts for these things. And there was a period of time where I just did not look at social media, probably for months. I would have other people check it for me because it was too painful to engage. And I also just don't engage. I mean, I post, but I don't engage. I don't have conversations on social media. I don't comment. I don't go back and forth. It's very rare. So because it just is not, it's not felt comfortable at all.
Well, I can imagine.
But I did just follow the mayor on Instagram.
Start interacting with him.
Same did I. Well, I mean, that's a huge topic. I like to talk about social media because there are like many different aspects. So I did run my election campaign in the beginning of 2018, and I was lecturing at a university before. And as I was lecturing at that university, I did ask my students in every course during the whole year of 2017, who is the mayor of the city? And there was not a single answer. So no one did know. All students, not a single out of them did know the name of the mayor, which was another city, not in Freiburg. It was in Ludwigsburg. But I did also ask them, like, what's the name? What's the name of the mayor of the state capital? And there was not a single answer again. And so there's like, it's a huge gap between like, let's say, towards local politics. So many people think town halls, local politics, I mean, who cares? But in fact, they're really important if you think about climate change, if you think about integration, if you think about housing, if you think about mobility, and. I mean, that's for daily life, like local politics are so important. And nowadays, I think the situation changed. Also because Fridays for Future, because like COVID, because many different things. I think people are way more about politics again. So we had like a period of tiredness, also of young people towards politics. But I think the situation has turned already. But still, in my case, I use social media really active for communication, for both ways. So that means I have like social media hours, and you can ask whatever you want live. Every month, I invite guests also during the COVID pandemic, but I also do some fun stuff. And if you tell people this mayor is posting socks, then people who have no idea about social media, they think, oh my God, what's this kind of dude? What he's doing with his socks? That's so weird and so on. But I mean, that's on Instagram. That's only online for 24 hours, and there's also a story behind it. That's kind of like self-irony, let's say, which is quite funny. Or also, I mean, we've got like, I don't know, 60-hour weeks, and it's a lot of. There's so much to do. And today I posted. I don't know if you see it. It's like a picture. I'm eating ice cream. So, and this is we did post it this afternoon, like a couple of hours before. Why? Because it's raining cats and dogs the whole time. We've got summer in Germany, and Freiburg is called the sunny city in Germany, but it's only rainy the whole time. You know, after the COVID pandemic, we've got really bad weather the whole time. So I did take a photo from last year, from last summer, and say, hey, the river and the Bachelor in Freiburg, ice cream and sun. But it was just a joke. And then because I texted, okay, there's ice cream and there's water, but there's no sun at all. And don't lose their good mood and something like this. So that's kind of like humor, and that's how we reach people, but also for real tough stuff. So I do post a lot about housing, mobility, climate justice, global injustice, and so on. So that's kind of like a personal mix, and that's, for me, it's very important to reach people who are normally very difficult to reach for local politics. So that's why I'm on social media, and that's sometimes not that important, and some people to think about it for me in person, but sometimes it's also just fun. But it's like, I don't know, less than 3% of my work life is social media. So that's a very little.
The ice cream really provoked me, and I thought it looked like fake news. Now he's spreading fake news. There's not.
No, that's a photo from last year. Did you see? You only look at the photos. You have to read also.
Very important comment. Well, I want to thank you both and extend my thanks first to Mayor Satya Rhodes-Conway over to Madison for engaging so actively in this really lovely getting to know conversation, and it made us want to travel. And thank you, Mary Bottari, for making this possible. And we say hello to, I see some familiar faces and some familiar living rooms in Madison out there as well. That's really lovely to see. We'd love to reconnect. And thank you, Oberbürgermeister Martin Horn, for being so open and willing, and for you both for sharing openly. And I feel like kind of hitting it off. So we are off to a good start to get our sister cities reconnected. And I will send over some suggestions to Madison on who we can connect next and what your city is interested in, what you want to find out, and then we can just you know, tighten the contact and strengthen the relationship a little bit online before we hopefully can come over next year.
I look forward to visiting in the hopefully not too distant future, and I look forward to more conversations. This was lovely.
Yes.
Mayor Horn, it was a real delight to get to talk with you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I do agree to 100%. Hello to Madison, and I'm really, I haven't been to your state, I haven't been to your city, and I'm really, really looking forward. So that, and I think there are many things we can learn from each other. We always need good ideas, and that was lovely. Thank you very much. Very interesting. Thank you also for the organization, Friederike, Hannah, and the whole team. Thanks a lot, and looking forward to see you in person.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening and a good lunch break over in Madison.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
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 Bye.